About a year ago, my guest today on the Daily Objective was on this channel for the first time, also on this show. I interviewed him about his own experience being somebody who spends about half his time in Israel. He has since become a regular panelist on the reality show, but today he's back on the Daily Objective again as a guest, and I will be interviewing him about why he won't hire pro-Palestinian protesters. And Michael Kauffman, welcome to the Daily Objective. This came about, I think, from a comment you just made on one of the shows saying I'm not going to hire these people because we when the protests on campuses happened, what we call the campus intifada, we were covering them daily on both our shows. And so just generally, let's give the audience an overview of what it is that you do and what kind of jobs you might be hiring for.
Sure. Well, I'm a drug developer. I was trained as an MD, PhD, and I was practicing medicine. And I decided I wanted to help make new medicines. My career has been mostly in oncology, making new cancer drugs, and I've had a very heavy role in the approval of 3 different new cancer drugs for patients. I currently run a small company in Boston that's focused on making new drugs for colon cancer and breast cancer. You really against targets that are well known in the industry, but no one has been able to make good drugs against them yet. So we're biting off a lot, but we're doing really well. It's a small company. I also sit on the boards of about 5 other companies, and I'm chairman of 3, I think, or 4 of those 5, where I do play a role in some employee selection, especially higher level people as well.
And so let's say somebody applies for a job. I'm going to try to play devil's advocate a little bit, although of all things I can play devil's advocate on, this is one of the toughest ones. Somebody is fully qualified, is the best candidate of all the ones you're looking at, but also was taken to the streets or blocking whatever it was on campuses, protesting, demanding that the university stops working with Israeli companies and so on. Why would you not hire such a person?
Well, the first thing is I'm Jewish. And the second thing is I spend half my time in Israel, and my wife is born Israeli, Jewish. My family is, all of my family are dual citizens, US and Israeli. And if someone doesn't think that Israel has a right to exist, I think they're going to have a problem with me to begin with, and I'm certainly going to have a problem with them. That's point number one. But I think the more overarching point is that someone that does that, they really fall into one of 2 categories. Either they're completely ignorant about what they're protesting for, and they are just think it's the thing to do, and it's what the crowd is doing or their friends are doing, so they're going to get out there and do this. And after all, Israel is successful, and Tel Aviv is a little bit like New York City, and it's skyscrapers, smaller scale, but still. And they must be bad, therefore. And the Palestinians must be good because they're a disaster, and Gaza has been a military zone and was responsible for starting a war. So if they haven't studied the situation, this is one possibility. They just haven't studied it. They decided to do it. Just do it. I don't want any person working for me that is that thoughtless about this kind of a thing. They are going to come into an industry where we're making drugs to save people's lives. And if they are against a country that is the only democracy in the Middle East, that's the only country in the Middle East that actively supports women, actively the only one that really supports women directly as equal citizens, and they truly are equal in Israel over the rest of the Middle East. And by the way, they're treated, frankly, as more equal in Israel than they are even in America. Not the least of which because they have to be in the army, but they also support LGBTQ. They support Arabs here in Israel. We have 20% of the population in Israel is Arab. And if they have, my point is, if they haven't delved into the thing that they're protesting for, I don't want them helping me make drugs to save cancer patients' lives. I'm not interested in someone that is that superficial. And never mind that their views directly conflict with my existence and my family's existence. And the second possibility is that they actively support so-called freedom fighters, or which we call terrorists. And by the way, which the UK, the US, the UK, and almost every other Western democracy considers terrorists. And if they actively support those people, I don't want them in here because they support a death cult. And it would be quite ironic to hire someone to make new medicines to save cancer patients. And by the way, even cancer patients from Gaza. Now, I will say, and I'm happy to say it, I'm proud of this stance and I would not change it. I do not believe in giving cancer drugs that I have invented to terrorists. I understand that violates some principles in medicine. I think those principles are absurd. I don't believe in helping people live that want to murder me. So let me get that off the table and be very clear about that. But those are the two categories of people that they're either superficial and stupid because they haven't really thought about what they're protesting for, or they actively support terrorism. And I don't want either of those two groups working for me.
Thank you, Bonnie, for the super chat. I don't know if you saw this a few days ago. It's been making the rounds on social media of somebody standing there with, this poster of there's a MAGA guy on one side and the Hamas terrorist on the other, saying, asking people, who do you think is going to be more sympathetic to LGBTQ plus stuff? And of course, one by one, at least the ones we see on the video, they all say the Hamas terrorists, which is interesting. And yeah, they're definitely saying that either out of complete ignorance of who it is that they're supporting, or out of sheer evil and just they're lying and they know exactly who they're supporting, and they they're also aware that the camera's rolling, so they say what they want people to hear. If you ask me, how proud are you, Razi, of 18, 19-year-old Razi? I wasn't a Hamas supporter, but those aren't the proudest years of my life. What about people who may be doing this now, or pro-Palestinian protests are not a new thing, maybe did this when they were 18 or 19 and are now in their 30s and regret it and have thought it through and moved on?
Well, I don't know that we've ever seen this level of despicable support in America ever. I mean, there's a few ill-advised people that have said to me, these are just like the protests in the 60s against the Vietnam War. And I look at them, I'm like, are you stupid? This is not anything like the Vietnam War protests were about whether America should be fighting a war with one hand tied behind its back, putting our kids and getting a lot of our kids killed, fighting a war that no one could explain why they were fighting. It wasn't about the existence of an entire nation that they were fighting, like Israel is fighting for its existence. We've never had this kind of support, even in the sex, drugs, and rock and roll phase of the 60s and the human rights movement. I mean, those were truly human rights movements. We've never seen this level of despicable behavior where kids have been taught, and it is completely on the heads of their teachers and their parents, that these kids have been taught to support, and it's part of this absurd critical race theory and all this kind of crap, that terrorists are somehow good. Terrorists that are proud of the fact that they annihilated people on October 7th and have said they want to do it again and again. And even before that, these are terrorists that have a charter that says that Israel does not have a right to exist. And these kids are supporting that. Now, I think some of the sins are unforgivable. If you are able to be persuaded that supporting murderers, terrorists, is okay, and people who proudly put their kids up with guns on videos and show everybody how they're training the next group of jihadists and globalize the jihad and everything, then I am not interested in trying to give you a second chance, because frankly, I got plenty of people coming into my company that want to work for me that deserve a first chance and haven't screwed up. And don't come from this warped mentality that some idiot professor, and I truly mean idiot professor, despicable, disgusting idiot professor has taught these kids, and the kids ate it up. And so I just think some things are unforgivable. You don't give people second chances unless you've exhausted everybody who's asked for a first chance.
Yeah, I first of all completely agree with you that the parents are also responsible. Maybe the sequel to this episode is why I won't hire the parents of pro-Palestinian protesters. Um, I had another point here, but oh yeah, the point that remember, if you are actually taking to the streets to support Hamas, uh, what Michael just said, this is going to follow you forever. And I mean, I think to some extent they know it because they cover their face. Like we have trolls in the chat, they never use their real name. People don't really aren't really that comfortable, saying who they are when they're expressing support
Exactly.
for these savages. Um,
Yeah, I just would add, just so those people know, we have access, and we do this for the senior people. We're not doing a lot of hiring right now, but when we are looking at people at VP or higher, we go to the black sites, and you can easily get an AI built software that actually can figure out exactly who these people are, even though their face is half covered. Because frankly, you have enough data on just the eyes and the upper cheekbones to figure out who they are. So it's about $4,000 US. It's money well spent, and we simply are not interested in hiring anybody that's even vaguely affiliated with these kinds of people.
Yeah, and there are a few organizations out there that do great work on this. The campaign against anti-Semitism, I believe the Canary Mission also does this, right? They find these people and then kind of push them up on the Google algorithm so that you
Yeah.
Google them and the first thing that comes up is here's their anti-Semitic rants or whatever online. Akira says, stop calling them kids. I agree. Yeah, they're at 18, 19, you don't you're not
No,
as much of an
fair point.
yeah.
Point taken. Absolutely.
Um, thank you, Christian, for the super chat. Christian says, did you hear about the Australian nurses who said online they would kill Israelis? And then Paul said we did a show about this the other week. Did we? I don't think if we did, I don't think I was on that. Daniel, you can correct me, but did you hear about that, Michael?
Oh, yeah. I mean, they were proudly saying that they were going to kill Israelis, their medical personnel in Australia. And, initially, of course, there was the usual baloney of we have to investigate this. It's complicated. And then I think a brain cell fired in somebody, or at least somebody with a backbone and with some moral justice came in the next day and they were fired. But apparently what's been uncovered now is there's a not insignificant number of people in Australia that have done similar things and had made similar statements that have, of course, been ignored. Now, in America, all of this is ignored as well. But if it ever happened that you were going to kill blacks or you're going to kill Latinos in America, you would be dismissed without a discussion immediately. But it's perfectly fine to say you're going to kill Jews in America. At least it used to be. And it still is at many of the campuses. I mean, the crap is still going on at Columbia and other places. This will change. Under Donald Trump, the new definitions of anti-Semitism are in place, and the DOJ is actually going to enforce them. They have an anti-Semitism. I don't know if what exactly the level and title and so on, but this is just become acceptable primarily because leaders have not called anyone on it. And when leaders don't call it, that is when the foxes are running the hen house, you end up with a bunch of dead chickens. And that will happen. There was another attack today in Los Angeles where a Jewish guy was attacked by a bunch of Arabs. And another place, a blue state, another place where these kinds of laws are not enforced. And I mention that because Australia and to a large extent Canada and to some extent London, no offense, have a reputation for being essentially lawless when it comes to anti-Semitism.
Yeah. By the way, I did see an NHS protester in one of the protests in London. That was also the video of that was making the rounds, and uh, Bulmus says that these nurses say they also said they have killed Israelis. Well, if yeah, we'll look into that story, and
Yeah,
it's
that's what they said. I'm not sure they really have, but going forward, you cannot let these people, it's a despicable thing in the medical profession. I mean, it's completely antithetical to what we're trying to do in medicine. And you shouldn't be in medicine if you can't treat people.
Yeah, I agree, and you shouldn't be really a part of or you're not really a part of polite society if you are supporting such savages. But the thing is, the universities doesn't matter who's president. I mean, the universities, the major ones, they're not going anywhere, and they're not really changing anything, right? They have basically unlimited funds. They can live off the interest, as we say. Uh,
Yeah, that's true, but we should all be very clear, at least in America, by and large, you only see these protests in blue states, in democratic states. Florida made it very clear that the governor made it very clear in Florida that this was not going to be tolerated. And the presidents of several of the universities got up there, Florida International University for one, and made a point that this one offense and you're expelled. It was not going to be tolerated. Similarly, in Texas, another major red state, that this was not going to be tolerated. Even in Austin, which is a Democratic stronghold, it simply wasn't going to happen. And you know what? It hasn't, for the most part. It happens in Massachusetts because it's extremely Democrat and very anti-Semitic. It happens in California, of course, and so on. And in Pennsylvania, which is teetering, and certainly in the big cities, particularly Philadelphia, is very Democrat, and so on. But this will hopefully change now that we have a Department of Justice that will actually start to hold these people accountable, not only civilly but hopefully criminally.
Yeah, one of my favorite images of the campus intifada was in UT Austin, where you see all these. I think there was the National Guard come in and march in,
Took him
and
out.
yeah.
Took them out. No tolerance. We in New York City, which is another, of course, New York is another place which is blue. Don't forget, we had a zero tolerance for crime law. That is when Rudy Giuliani was mayor, and the reason New York went, for those that are old enough to remember, it was a pretty depressing place to go and a pretty scary place for tourists. And Rudy Giuliani came in and said, "We're going to zero tolerance. We're putting a cop on every street corner. And anybody who misbehaves is going to be taken into booking and assessed." And the crime rates dropped, the tourism skyrocketed. Interestingly, trash went way down, literally. The city was cleaner without much additional. I mean, they of course cleaned it up as well. But and then, of course, this is not what has happened now. We've gone back the other way because somebody came up with a brilliant idea that if we just defund the police, and it's the same people, we defund the police, crime rates are going to go down. Well, guess what? Crime rates went way up. Trash went up. Homelessness went up. Tourism went down. And if you need, for those of you who think I'm a little bit biased, go down Market Street in San Francisco. It has about a 30% occupancy right now on the largest street dividing the city. 30% occupancy, folks. Homeless people, crime, trash, needles, human excrement, etc. And this is the same group of people that are supporting terrorists, that are supporting all of this chaos. And that's what happens when you support terrorism and you support a lack of rule of law.
Yeah, I've been to New York a couple of times in recent months, and it's still my favorite place on earth. But yeah, you do have to step over a few more homeless people than
Yeah.
before, and it doesn't look like it's going in the right direction. And Alex Epstein often points out, and this is a wider statement on the culture, that if somebody wanted to build Manhattan today, it would not be allowed. Certainly, the environmentalists wouldn't allow it, and it's shocking that it's the people who live in Manhattan and enjoy what it is probably would not approve of it being created. Thank you, Jonathan, for the super chat. Uh, so you're not the only one who's not hiring protesters, and this is basically this is a thing. I don't know how big a thing it is, how widespread it is. Do you know?
No, I've talked to a few friends of mine, and they don't like to talk about it, frankly. And there is even this ridiculous sense, I think, from some of them that, well, we kind of should help these people and show them the way. I have a much broader sense of the role of companies, especially privately funded companies, but any company, because at the end of the day, shareholders are the owners of the company. And I don't know anybody who puts money into a company that wants the management to be in charge of what I call adult kindergarten. And we certainly should not be in the business of trying to re-educate people who have been so misled on their own by their parents and their teachers, and are, as you nicely pointed out, are no longer children. It's not our job. It is shocking. It is. I can tell you, in general, in corporate America, and I've been in it since 1995. It is shocking how much bad behavior we do put up with underperforming employees. And these are generally employees who are not terrorist supporters, as best as I can tell. By the way, every employee we do get in our company, regardless of level, has to sign an affidavit that a cultural attestation, we call it, that they do not support any group that is considered a terrorist by the United States of America, any group. But it is shocking how much waste goes into, quote, training adults to behave in a responsible manner as good corporate citizens and contributors. And this is just it's one shockingly bad step against even that behavior. I mean, this is really, really bad behavior. One point I should make in addition, don't forget, if you're supporting these folks and someone is a Jew in your company, there's a problem. Now, it turns out Jews are overrepresented in medical sciences, just like Indians are overrepresented in the medical sciences. And Asians are overrepresented relative to their percentage in the population. It's a problem for those employees who did nothing to deserve this kind of preconceived notions and biases. And I would much rather support those people who have done nothing to counter normal Western civilization and support anybody who's good and is a good citizen than I would to someone who gets up and protests in favor of terrorists.
Yeah, and just to be fair, we're gonna look up which industries Palestinians are overrepresented in. We'll get back to you. Akira says, my favorite was the professor of economics, Razi. That was an instant classic. Yeah, that's my favorite as well, which is why we've played this clip many times. And by the way, Daniel, today would be, if you have it handy, would be a good day to show it again. There was also a mock trial where I played a character loosely based on that professor, which was also a lot of fun. These people often talk about boycotting Israel, and then it's not an easy thing to do if you actually try to do it. I remember a few years ago there was some boycott Israel website that was created on Wix, and you can see at the bottom it says created by on Wix, which is Israeli. Just any general thoughts on that, and how I always say I would love these people to actually fully attempt to boycott Israel in the full sense, like environmentalists, if they try to fully live without fossil fuel technologies. Yeah, thoughts on that?
Sure. I mean, they can throw out their iPhones and they can throw out their Intel-based Intel. The company Intel has a big site here that does a lot of programming and early stuff. They can cut out a lot of the foods they eat because a lot of the technologies for that came out of Israel. They can forget about desalinating, at least any modern desalination plant, which has reasonably good energy footprint. As you guys know, it's a very dirty process, but if you need fresh water, and guess what? You do need fresh water to live. It's the best technology for desalination has come out of Israel. And Israel, which is a desert, is a very well irrigated area, and there are no water restrictions here in Israel, much less so than the restrictions that exist in, say, another backwards country called California, where every summer there's a drought. Israel no longer has a drought. It has solved those. It's an astonishing place, Israel, and it doesn't want to bother anybody. It's real simple. Leave us alone and we'll leave you alone. And for the 200,000 plus Arabs that used to work here from Gaza, you lost your jobs, guys, and you're done. You're not getting any jobs in Gaza. We gave you jobs here, and what'd you do? You took advantage of it by killing us. So we're done with that. One other thing, there's at least one technology that I'm super familiar with that came right out of Israel, which is if you have a problem in your small intestine, you have two choices nowadays. You can have open abdominal surgery, which takes at least 2 weeks to have an initial recovery and 3 or 4 months before your wound is really healed, or you can swallow a camera, which came out of the Israeli Defense Forces, which you swallow, and it takes pictures of your entire small intestine, and it can all be looked at without ever getting near a scalpel, ever near getting under the knife. That came out of a company called Given Imaging out of Israel. Again, technology coming out of the military because they were developing micro cameras to see into terrorist houses. All those houses where all the good Gazans stored all those guns and ammunition and rocket launchers and so on. So it's silly. Razi, I would just go on one more second about this because it's the same behavior. It's the same people that are screaming about how bad Elon Musk is, which is truly ironic because Elon Musk started two of the most important environmentally friendly companies in the world ever. One was called Solar City, and it was the first major solar panel company in the US, the first really large one that had a huge footprint. It was eventually absorbed by the other company that he built, which is responsible for most of the good green automobile industry called Tesla. And this is the guy that they hate. And they hate him because he actually did the things that they asked for. And he was successful. Therefore, he must be bad.
Well, I think Elon is a mixed bag, but it's so weird. I saw today somebody, drew a swastika on a Cybertruck. I mean, as if Cybertrucks aren't ugly enough already. And it's like, I don't get it. I mean, if I only purchase from companies where the person running it fully shares my values, my life would be, an unfilmed episode of Naked and Afraid. I mean, you don't have a full ideological test for everybody, you work with in any way. Although I think when it comes to somebody actually supporting terrorism, maybe there is a line to be drawn somewhere. I wanted to, well, I think, what, let's I know you're not hiring any economics professors anytime soon, but let's watch this clip and end on this happy note. But it's not going to be the full ending, Daniel. So don't end the episode after the clip.
People are fascists. You are Hitler. You are a laughing dog. Shame on you. May you never live another day.
I am a professor.
Listen to every professor, everyone.
I am a professor of economics.
You are rabid dogs. You are fascists.
It was a peaceful protest until they started fighting troopers.
I agree with you.
you're right. It's right to rebel. I'm gonna share this.
Please remove the handcuffs.
Susie says in the chat, this is never not funny, and I completely agree. I mean, you see the the journey she takes there in her first she tries to resist arrest, and she has different types of ways of getting them to not arrest her, and the guy filming it says, you're fascist, you're literally Hitler, because Hitler was well known for arresting people who resisted arrest. Anyway.
Yes.
Parting thoughts, Michael, and where can people find more from you?
Well, I think, the thing that's the underlying point there is that this is when adults behave like children and they get reprimanded and they don't accept the consequences. She thinks she's allowed to resist arrest, scream at officers, cross picket lines, and they have an unlawful tent city there, which of course was allowed because that's the nature of our lack of leadership these days. But she got nailed. And the police did their job finally and said enough of this. But that's what you do with adults who behave like children. You treat them like children and you punish them. And it's very simple because she needs to protest in a way that's constructive, not threatening policemen in a highly charged situation. Michael Kauffman, 2Fs on LinkedIn.
Yeah, and I don't know what she's doing today. I'm guessing very much like you won't hire such people. Her university won't fire her, but that's she was treated like a child, and she got her time out for a little bit. So
Exactly.
at least there's that. Thanks, Michael. Thanks everybody for watching. The reality show follows. We will be talking about the Israeli left peace plans. They keep coming, and the latest one, I'm sure, is the one that's going to actually bring peace. We will be discussing that in a couple of minutes. Stay tuned.
Cheers. Thanks, Rob.